The Aurora's Mercy cut through the void between star clusters, its quantum engines humming with rhythmic precision. The prison transport vessel's sleek hull bore the insignia of the Celestia Star Alliance, gleaming under the distant starlight. Inside, the recycled air carried the metallic tang of artificial atmosphere, punctuated by the steady beep of bio-monitoring systems and the occasional clang of security doors. Isla Riven stood before the reinforced glass of cell block V, her white medical uniform crisp against her olive skin. Her dark eyes studied the prisoner inside, a Vorak warrior named Kerr Voss. His massive frame dominated the small space, scaled skin rippling with bioluminescent patterns that pulsed in sync with his breathing. Even confined, he exuded predatory grace. "Final vitals check before sector jump," Isla announced, her voice deliberately clinical. She refused to let her hand tremble as she adjusted the scanner. The Vorak were responsible for the Meridian Colony massacre. Her family had been among the victims. Now she served as field medic on a ship, transporting the alleged mastermind of that atrocity. Kerr's amber eyes tracked her movements. "Your heart rate increases when you approach my cell. Terran, fear, or hatred?" His voice rumbled like distant thunder. Isla didn't answer. The scanner confirmed normal readings for Vorak physiology. Elevated body temperature, dual-chambered heart rhythm steady, neural patterns within expected parameters for their species. She logged the data and prepared to move to the next prisoner. "Both," she finally replied, not looking back. "But neither will interfere with my duties." Behind her, Kerr made a sound, something between a laugh and a growl. "Fascinating creatures, you Terrans. So fragile, yet you persist." Isla walked away, passing the other cells containing various species deemed too dangerous for standard incarceration. Most were Vorak commanders, captured during the recent armistice. The war had officially ended, but the wounds remained fresh. The Aurora's Mercy was transporting them to a maximum security facility on Proxima Station for trial. Head nurse Mara Sun waited for her at the medical bay entrance. "How's our celebrity prisoner?" she asked, her cybernetic eye whirring as it focused. "Stable, defiant, same as yesterday." Isla removed her outer gloves, feeding them into the sterilization unit. "Captain Jax wants an update on their collective status before the jump. He's concerned about potential synchronized resistance during transit." Isla nodded. "I'll compile the report. But honestly, they're secured individually in biodampening fields. Even Vorak's strength can't break through those." "You sound almost disappointed," Mara observed with a half-smile. "I'm a doctor. I believe in saving lives, not taking them." Isla pulled up holographic charts of all prisoners. Even theirs. "Even after what they did to Meridian? To your family?" Mara's voice softened. Isla's fingers paused over the data. "Especially then. Otherwise, what separates us from them?" The ship's intercom crackled. "Medical team, this is Captain Jax Roan. Prepare for anomalous spatial disturbance. Secure all equipment and personnel." The warning came too late. A massive shockwave hit the Aurora's Mercy, sending both women sprawling across the floor. Emergency lights flashed crimson as the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. Through the viewport, Isla glimpsed the aftermath of what appeared to be a supernova or spatial rupture, a blinding tear in the fabric of space itself. "Status report!" Jax's voice commanded over the chaos. Various sections reported in as Isla pulled herself up using a bolted-down medical cabinet. Something felt wrong. The bio readings from the prisoner section flickered on her wrist display, showing dangerous fluctuations. "The biofields in detention block are destabilizing," she reported, already moving toward the exit. "If they fail completely, the prisoners..." I'm sending security. Jax cut in. Do not approach that section without... But Isla was already running down the corridor, med kit in hand. The ship groaned around her, metal joints straining against forces they weren't designed to withstand. Ahead, she could see the security doors to Cell Block V sliding irregularly in their tracks. The power surge had compromised the locking mechanisms. She arrived just as Kerr Voss's cell door malfunctioned, opening with a hydraulic hiss. The massive Vorak stepped out, amber eyes gleaming in the emergency lighting. Without the containment field, his full presence filled the corridor, nearly 8 feet of apex predator evolution. Claws extended and ridge spines raised along his arms. Their eyes met across the distance. Recognition. Then calculation flashed across his reptilian features. Isla knew she should run, but her medical training overrode her survival instinct. Several other cell doors were glitching as well. Security systems failing throughout the block. The ship lurched again, more violently this time. A section of ceiling tore loose, razor-sharp metal slicing through the air between them. Isla dove sideways, but Kerr wasn't as fortunate. The debris caught him across the torso, driving him to the ground with a roar of pain and rage. Blood, a startling iridescent blue, spread beneath him as he struggled to rise. Isla's medical scanner instantly analyzed the wound. Severe trauma to the secondary cardiovascular system, punctured respiratory chamber, and damage to neural pathways unique to Vorak physiology. Fatal, without immediate intervention. She had seconds to decide. Security would arrive soon. The other cells were compromised. The logical choice was clear. Retreat. Seal the section. Protect the ship. Instead, Isla ran toward the fallen Vorak. Medkit already open. Don't move, she commanded, kneeling beside him. Her hands moved with practiced efficiency, applying pressure to the wound. Your secondary heart chamber is damaged. Kerr's clawed hand grasped her wrist, strong enough to crush bone. Why, he growled, blood bubbling between scaled lips. I'm a doctor, she answered simply, breaking his grip with a practiced twist and continuing her assessment. Now shut up and let me work. The ship's AI announced over the intercom. Warning, biofield generators critically compromised. Security breach in detention level. All personnel evacuate immediately. Emergency protocols initiated. Isla ignored it, focusing on stemming the blood flow. The wound was worse than she initially thought. Without the proper equipment from medical bay, she couldn't hope to repair the damage, but she could stabilize him enough for transport. Dr. Riven, Captain Jax's voice echoed through her communicator. Get out of there now. We're sealing the section. There's a wounded prisoner, she responded. I need a medical transport unit. Negative. All Vorak prisoners are considered expendable under emergency protocols. The biofield failure is spreading to other systems. We need to contain it. Isla looked down at Kerr, whose breathing had become shallow and labored. His eyes remained fixed on her. Pain evident, but also something else. Curiosity. Perhaps. He'll die without treatment, she argued. That's not our concern. The safety of this ship and its crew takes priority. You have 30 seconds to evacuate before we seal that section permanently. Kerr's voice came as a rasp. Go. Terran, your kind always chooses survival. The dismissal in his tone sparked something in Isla. No, she said, both to Jax and to Kerr. I'm not leaving. She turned off her communicator and returned to treating the wound, using emergency sealant on the gaping tear in his scaled hide. The ship trembled continuously now, systems failing throughout the vessel. Warning lights bathed them in pulsing red as she worked. Why sacrifice yourself for an enemy? Kerr asked between painful breaths. You're not an enemy right now. You're a patient. Isla administered a universal painkiller, hoping his system wouldn't reject it. And I took an oath. Oaths, he scoffed. Meaningless when survival is at stake. Maybe to you. She finished applying the sealant and began preparing a makeshift pressure bandage from supplies in her kit. But they're what separate civilization from chaos. Kerr studied her with those unsettling amber eyes. On my world, the strong survive by preying on the weak. It is the natural order. And look where that philosophy got you, Isla retorted, gesturing to his wound. To her surprise, a rumbling sound emerged from his chest. Laughter, despite the pain. You have spirit. Dr. Riven. The doors at the end of the corridor slid open, and security officers in full tactical gear poured in, weapons trained on the fallen Vorak. Step away from the prisoner, Doctor, commanded the lead officer. He needs immediate medical attention, Isla countered, not moving from her position. That's not happening. All prisoners are being relocated to secure containment. The damaged ones will be processed according to protocol. Processed? Isla's voice rose. These are living beings, not cargo. The security officer's expression hardened. These are war criminals responsible for the deaths of millions. Now move aside. Kerr's voice came as a whisper only Isla could hear. Your compassion is wasted here. Terran, go. Live. Instead, Isla stood, placing herself between the security team and her patient. As Chief Medical Officer, I am invoking Emergency Medical Protocol 718. This prisoner requires immediate treatment that supersedes security concerns. That protocol doesn't apply to Vorak prisoners, the officer countered. It applies to all sentient beings on this vessel, Isla insisted. Check the Celestia medical charter. The standoff was interrupted by another violent lurch of the ship, sending everyone staggering. The lights flickered ominously, and new alarms joined the cacophony. Multiple system failures detected, announced the ship's AI. Biofield containment critical, initiating emergency jump sequence to nearest safe harbor. We need to evacuate this section now, the security leader ordered. That includes you, Doctor. Isla felt Kerr's clawed hand grip the fabric of her uniform. When she looked down, she saw not threat, but resignation in those alien eyes. Your death changes nothing, he said. Save yourself. Something in his tone made her suspect he was not merely concerned for her survival, but was offering a genuine chance at escape. She knelt beside him again. I'll make you a deal, she said, low enough that only he could hear. You help me convince them to let me treat you properly, and I'll tell you about my family on Meridian, the ones your forces killed. His eyes widened slightly, the vertical pupils dilating. Why would I want to hear that? Because understanding your enemy's pain is the first step toward questioning why you fight. She held his gaze steadily. Isn't that worth surviving for? After a long moment, Kerr turned his head toward the security team. I will cooperate fully, he announced, his voice stronger than seemed possible given his injury. I possess strategic information that your commanders will find valuable, but I require medical treatment to survive long enough to provide it. The security officers exchanged glances. One touched his communicator, presumably consulting with Captain Jax. After a tense moment, he nodded reluctantly. You can treat him in medical bay under guard, he told Isla. But if he makes one wrong move... He won't, Isla interrupted, already preparing Kerr for transport. Will you? The Vorak's eyes held hers. I am in your debt, Dr. Riven. In Vorak culture, such debts are sacred. As they carefully moved Kerr onto a hover stretcher, Isla noticed the other prisoners watching from their partially opened cells, held back only by the remaining security fields and armed guards. Their expressions varied from confusion to what might have been respect, The journey to Medical Bay was tense, with the ship continuing to shudder around them. Emergency crews rushed past, dealing with fires and system failures throughout the vessel. The damage from the spatial anomaly was clearly more extensive than initially thought. Once in Medical Bay, Isla immediately set to work, connecting Care to the advanced diagnostic equipment. The readings confirmed her field assessment. Without surgery to repair his secondary heart and damaged neural pathways, he would die within hours. "I need to operate," she told the guard stationed at the door. "That means you need to wait outside the sterile field." "We maintain visual contact at all times," the lead guard insisted. "Fine." Through the observation window, Isla was already preparing surgical tools. "Mara, I need your assistance." The head nurse looked reluctant, but moved to help, her professionalism overriding her personal feelings about the patient. "The ship's in bad shape," she murmured as they scrubbed in. "Engineering says the biofield collapse is spreading to other critical systems." "All the more reason to work quickly," Isla replied, donning surgical gear. As they prepared for the procedure, Kerr remained conscious, watching their every move with those unnerving predator eyes. Vorak do not typically allow themselves to be rendered unconscious in the presence of potential enemies. He informed them when Isla mentioned anesthesia. "You don't have a choice," she countered. "Your neural system is too damaged for local blocks, and I can't have you moving during delicate repairs." "Then I place my life in your hands, Dr. Riven," he said with surprising formality. "But know this, if I die, my kinsmen will seek vengeance." "Is that a threat?" Mara asked sharply. "A simple truth," Care replied, "though perhaps irrelevant if this vessel continues its descent into catastrophic failure." Isla administered the anesthetic specially calibrated for Vorak physiology. As Care's eyes began to close, he murmured, "The Meridian colony was not supposed to be a target." Before Ayla could question him further, he succumbed to the medication. She exchanged a troubled look with Mara, then focused on the task at hand. The operation would be challenging. Vorak anatomy, while similar in some respects to other humanoid species, contained unique adaptations that made surgical intervention complex. As they worked, the ship's condition continued to deteriorate. Twice, power fluctuations threatened the medical equipment, forcing them to switch to emergency backup systems. Captain Jax's voice occasionally came over the intercom, issuing orders or providing grim updates on the ship's status. "Biofield degradation has reached the propulsion systems," he announced at one point. "Engineering is attempting to isolate the cascade failure." Isla's hands remained steady as she repaired the damaged vessels around Kir's secondary heart. Vorak evolved from apex predators on a harsh world, their bodies designed for survival with redundant systems and remarkable regenerative capabilities. If she could repair the major damage, his natural healing might handle the rest. "His readings are stabilizing," Mara noted with surprise as they completed the most critical repairs. "I didn't think he'd make it this far." "Vorak are survivors," Isla replied, carefully sealing the last major vessel. "That's what makes them such formidable enemies. And why showing mercy to one seems so counterintuitive," Mara added, her tone neutral but her implication clear. Isla didn't respond immediately, focusing on closing the surgical site. "Finally," she said, "war makes monsters of everyone involved. Sometimes the only way to break that cycle is to remember our common humanity." "He's not human," Mara pointed out. "Humanity isn't about species, it's about compassion, even when it's difficult." Isla checked Care's vital signs one last time. "We're done here. He'll need close monitoring, but I think he'll recover." As if in response to her words, the ship lurched violently, throwing both women against the medical equipment. Emergency lights flashed, and the artificial gravity fluctuated wildly. "Critical system failure," announced the ship's AI, its usually calm voice now urgent. "Biofield collapse has reached central processors. Initiating emergency protocol Omega. All personnel proceed to evacuation stations." "What's Protocol Omega?" Mara asked, steadying herself against a console. Isla's face paled. "Ship self-destruct sequence." The medical bay doors slid open, and Captain Jax himself entered, accompanied by additional security personnel. His uniform was disheveled, and a cut above his eye had left a trail of dried blood down his face. "Dr. Riven, Nurse Sun, you need to evacuate now," he ordered. "The ship's core systems are compromised beyond repair. We're abandoning ship." "What about the prisoners?" Isla asked, glancing at Kair's unconscious form. Jax's expression hardened. "Secure pods are being prepared for high-value detainees. The others—" He didn't finish the sentence. "You can't just leave them to die," Isla protested. "I don't have a choice. The evacuation pods can only accommodate a fraction of the total prisoner population. And right now, my priority is saving my crew." Jax's tone left no room for argument. "The Vorak commander stays here. He's too dangerous to risk transporting in his current state." "He's sedated and recovering from major surgery," Isla countered. "He poses no threat." "That's not your call to make, Doctor. Now both of you, move out." Jax gestured to the door. Mara took a step toward the exit, but Isla remained by Kair's side. "I can't abandon a patient mid-treatment. This isn't a debate. That's a direct order." Jax's hand moved to his sidearm in a not-so-subtle warning. Isla looked down at Kair, then back at the captain. "How long until the self-destruct sequence completes?" 20 minutes, which is why we need to move now. Then go. Get everyone else to safety." Isla's voice was calm but resolute. "I'll stay with my patient until the last possible moment. Then take the emergency medical shuttle." Jax stared at her incredulously. "You're risking your life for a war criminal?" "I'm doing my job," she corrected him. "Now please, let me do it." After a tense moment, Jax nodded curtly. "The medical shuttle is prepped in Bay 3. You have 15 minutes, not a second more. After that, it automatically launches with or without you." "Understood." Jax turned to leave, then paused. "He wouldn't do the same for you, you know." "That's why we're different," Isla replied simply. After they left, Mara lingered uncertainly by the door. "Isla, this is madness." "Go with them, Mara. I'll be right behind you." "You can't possibly believe that," the nurse said sadly. "We both know Vorak physiology. He won't be stable enough to move for at least an hour." Isla checked Kair's vital signs again. "Then I'll have to work quickly." Mara hesitated, then stepped forward and pressed a small device into Isla's hand. "Neural stabilizer. It might help accelerate his recovery, enough for transport." Her eyes met Isla's. "Don't throw your life away for him." With that, she hurried out, leaving Ayla alone with her unconscious patient and the steadily ticking clock of the ship's destruction. The neural stabilizer was a specialized piece of equipment designed to temporarily boost neural function in traumatic injuries. Using it on Kair was a gamble. Vorak neural pathways were structurally different from those of humans. But Isla had no other options. She calibrated the device as best she could and applied it to the base of Kair's skull, where his central neural cluster was located. The effect was almost immediate. His vital signs strengthened, and his natural healing processes accelerated visibly. "Come on," she murmured, watching the monitors anxiously. "Wake up!" Around her, the ship continued its gradual descent into chaos. Systems failed one after another, creating an orchestra of alarms and emergency announcements. Through the medical bay viewport, She could see evacuation pods launching, small streaks of light against the vast darkness of space. The minutes ticked by with excruciating slowness. 10 minutes until destruction. 9. 8. Kerr's eyes snapped open suddenly, the vertical pupils contracting sharply in the bright medical bay lights. He tried to sit up, but Isla placed a restraining hand on his chest. "Don't move yet. You've undergone major surgery." His gaze focused on her, confusion evident. "The ship is about to self-destruct," she finished for him. "We need to get to the medical shuttle." Understanding dawned in those alien eyes. "You stayed." "Yes, now can you walk?" Kerr assessed his own condition with the pragmatic efficiency of a warrior. With assistance, Isla disconnected him from the monitoring equipment and helped him to a sitting position. His massive frame dwarfed hers, making the prospect of supporting him to the shuttle bay seem almost comical. But Vorak were nothing if not resilient. Once upright, he seemed able to bear most of his own weight. "This way," Isla directed, guiding him toward the door. The corridors outside medical bay were eerily empty, the crew having already evacuated. Emergency lighting cast everything in a red glow, and intermittent explosions from failing systems reverberated through the hull. 6 minutes until self-destruct sequence completion, announced the ship's AI. They moved as quickly as Kerr's condition allowed, with Isla supporting him when necessary. Despite his injury, his predator's instincts remained sharp. More than once, he pulled her away from falling debris or sparking electrical panels. "Why did you risk yourself for me?" he asked, as they navigated a particularly damaged section of corridor. The truth this time. Isla helped him step over a fallen support beam before answering. "When I was 8, I watched my mother die from an injury I couldn't treat. I swore then that I would never stand by helplessly while someone could be saved. Even someone who might have ordered the death of your family?" She met his gaze steadily. "Did you order the attack on Meridian?" Kerr was silent for a long moment, their progress slowing. "The attack was a strategic error. The colony was supposed to be evacuated before bombardment, a communication failure." He trailed off, seeming to recognize the inadequacy of such an explanation. "So it was a mistake," Isla said, her voice tight with controlled emotion. "Thousands dead by mistake." "War is filled with such mistakes," Kerr replied, not defensively, but with a weariness that suggested he had carried this knowledge for some time. "It does not lessen the loss." They reached an intersection where the path to the shuttle bay branched off. As they turned the corner, a violent explosion rocked the ship, sending them both crashing into the wall. A support beam collapsed, striking Kerr across his already injured torso. He roared in pain, collapsing to his knees. Isla rushed to assess the damage. The impact had reopened his surgical wound, and fresh blue blood seeped through the bandages. 3 minutes until self-destruct sequence completion, the AI announced impassively. "We need to keep moving," Isla urged, trying to help Kerr to his feet. He growled in pain but made the attempt, leaning heavily against her. They managed only a few more steps before he stumbled again. "Leave me," he said, his breathing labored. "You still have time to reach the shuttle." Isla looked ahead at the remaining distance to the shuttle bay, then back at Kerr. The rational choice was clear. She should go. Save herself. Live to help others another day. 2 minutes until self-destruct sequence completion. Instead, she knelt beside him, applying pressure to the reopened wound. "I'm not leaving you." "You would die for your principles?" Kerr asked incredulously. "If necessary." She continued working, knowing it was futile. "Though I'd prefer we both lived." Another explosion, closer this time. The ship's structure groaned around them, metal twisting under forces it was never designed to withstand. 1 minute until self-destruct sequence completion. Isla looked up at the countdown displayed on a nearby emergency panel, then back at Kerr. His amber eyes held hers, something like respect flickering in their depths. "In my culture," he said slowly, "to die alongside an honored enemy is considered a worthy end." "I'm not your enemy right now," Isla replied. "Just a doctor who failed to save her patient." "No." Kerr contradicted her, his clawed hand reaching up to touch her face with surprising gentleness. "You succeeded where countless others failed. You made me question our ways." The ship's AI began the final countdown. 30 seconds until self-destruct sequence completion. Isla did the only thing that felt right in that moment. She sat beside Kerr and wrapped her arms around his massive frame, holding him close as they faced death together. His body was warmer than a human's, the scaled skin unexpectedly smooth against her cheek. 20 seconds. "I would have liked to know your world in peacetime," Kerr murmured. 10 seconds. "I forgive you," Isla whispered, surprised to find she meant it. "For Meridian. For my family." 5, 4, 3. They closed their eyes, waiting for the end. 2, 1. The expected explosion never came. Instead, the countdown paused, and the emergency lights flickered from red to a soft blue. The ship's AI spoke in a different tone than before. "Emergency override activated. Biosignature recognized. Heart bond protocol engaged. Self-destruct sequence aborted." Isla opened her eyes in confusion. "What just happened?" Kerr looked equally bewildered. "The ship. It responded to us." A new voice emerged from the communications system, the chief engineer, sounding as surprised as they felt. "Captain, the biofield is stabilizing. Something's reset the primary matrix." They heard Jax's distant reply. "How is that possible? The cascade failure was irreversible." "Unknown, sir, but we're registering a unique biosignature interaction in Sector 7. It seems to have triggered a dormant protocol in the ship's AI." Isla and Kerr exchanged a look of dawning comprehension. Sector 7, exactly where they were. "The Aurora's Mercy," Isla whispered. "It's not just a name." "Your people built compassion into a warship?" Kerr asked incredulously. "Apparently." She helped him sit up more comfortably against the wall. "Though I doubt anyone expected it to activate quite like this." The ship's systems continued to stabilize around them. Lights returned to normal, and the constant alarms finally silenced. Through the nearest viewport, Isla could see the evacuation pods returning, their occupants presumably as confused by their survival as she was. "Dr. Riven," Captain Jax's voice came through her communicator. "Status report." "I'm with the prisoner in Sector 7, she replied. "We're both alive, though he needs medical attention." "Stay where you are. Security is en route to your location." Jax paused, then added, "The engineer says whatever you did saved this ship. Care to explain?" Isla looked at Kerr, who was watching her with those inscrutable alien eyes. "I'm not entirely sure myself, Captain. But I think the ship recognized genuine compassion between supposed enemies." "That's not possible," Jax scoffed. "The Aurora's systems aren't that sophisticated." "Perhaps they are," Kerr interjected, his voice carrying despite his weakened state. "Or perhaps they should be." Security arrived moments later, surrounding them with drawn weapons. But something had changed. The atmosphere was different, less hostile, more uncertain. One of the officers helped Isla to her feet, while others carefully lifted Kerr onto a stretcher. As they were escorted back to medical bay, Isla noticed movement in the adjacent cell block. The security fields had been restored, but the other Vorak prisoners stood at the transparent barriers, watching silently as their commander was carried past. Their expressions were unreadable to her, but Kerr seemed to understand something in their posture. "Stand down," he commanded suddenly, his voice carrying through the corridor. "Lower your weapons." To Isla's astonishment, the Vorak complied. Those who had managed to acquire makeshift weapons during the chaos set them aside. The tension in the air dissipated, replaced by something unfamiliar but unmistakably less threatening. Captain Jax appeared, his expression a mixture of disbelief and suspicion. "What just happened?" "A choice," Kerr replied simply. "One inspired by your doctor's actions." In Medical Bay, Isla immediately set to work repairing the damage caused by their ill-fated escape attempt. Kerr remained conscious this time, observing her work with curious eyes. "The protocols of my people demand that I honor the life debt between us," he said, as she finished redressing his wounds. "But I find myself wanting to do more than merely fulfill an obligation." "What do you mean?" Isla asked, setting aside her instruments. "Peace between our kinds has always seemed impossible. We are predators. Your people are not." Kerr's expression was thoughtful. "But perhaps that very difference could be our strength rather than our weakness." Captain Jax, who had been observing from nearby, stepped closer. "Are you proposing some kind of alliance?" "I am proposing a beginning," Kerr clarified, "starting with medical cooperation. Your doctor has demonstrated knowledge of Vorak physiology that could benefit both our peoples." "Medical cooperation," Isla repeated, the idea taking root. "Exchange of knowledge, techniques, treatments. A foundation upon which other forms of cooperation might eventually be built," Kerr confirmed. Jax looked skeptical. "You're still a prisoner facing charges of genocide. And I will face those charges," Kerr acknowledged, but perhaps with a different perspective than before. His eyes found Isla's, one that recognizes the strength in mercy. In the days that followed, as the Aurora's Mercy limped toward its original destination, a strange calm settled over the ship. The Vorak prisoners maintained their unexpected cooperation, and provisional discussions began about the possibility of medical exchange programs. When they finally docked at Proxima Station, news of what had occurred aboard the Aurora's Mercy had preceded them. Celestia Alliance officials were waiting, along with media representatives and a hastily assembled diplomatic contingent. Isla stood beside Kerr's hover stretcher as they prepared to disembark. He would still face trial, still answer for the actions of the Vorak forces. But something fundamental had shifted. "They will ask you to testify," he said quietly, "about what happened on the ship." "I'll tell the truth," she replied, "that sometimes enemies can become something else when we see each other's humanity, even when one lacks humanity in the biological sense." His expression held the closest thing to a smile she had ever seen on a Vorak face. "Especially then." She placed her hand briefly on his scaled one. "Safe journey, Commander Voss." "And you, Dr. Riven," he held her gaze, "until our paths cross again." As they moved through the airlock into the station, Isla noticed the changed atmosphere immediately. Where there might have been hostile crowds, there was instead curious observation. Where there might have been calls for execution, there were whispers of negotiation. A high-ranking Celestia official approached her as Kerr was escorted toward the detention area. "Dr. Riven, your actions aboard the Aurora's Mercy were unorthodox, but effective," she countered. "Indeed." The official handed her a data pad. "Which is why the Alliance Council has approved a preliminary investigation into the feasibility of an interspecies medical exchange program. They're calling it the Aurora Protocol." Isla took the pad, scanning the information with growing excitement. "They want me to lead it?" alongside Commander Voss, once his legal status is resolved. The official's expression became serious. His testimony regarding your actions has already changed many minds. He's petitioned to be tried under joint Celestia-Vorak law, with any sentence to be served while contributing to the medical program. And the council agreed to this? They're considering it. The official gestured toward the observation window, where Isla could see Care being escorted to the station's medical facility rather than its prison. Peace has to start somewhere, Doctor. Sometimes it begins with a single act of compassion. Isla watched Care's retreating form, remembering the moment when she had wrapped her arms around a dying enemy and found something unexpected. Hope. Yes, she agreed quietly. Sometimes it does. 6 months later, the first official Celestia-Vorak Medical Symposium opened on neutral territory, a space station positioned precisely between their respective territories. Isla stood at the podium, looking out at the unprecedented gathering of physicians, researchers, and diplomats from both species. In the front row sat Kerr Voss. His trial concluded with a complex verdict that acknowledged his responsibility while recognizing his role in the peace process. His sentence combined restitution to Meridian survivors with leadership of the Vorak medical contingent. We gather today not as former enemies, but as healers, Isla began, brought together by the understanding that compassion can bridge even the widest gaps between cultures. She caught Care's eye as she spoke, remembering the ship's corridors, the countdown to destruction, and the moment when the impossible became possible. The Aurora Protocol begins with medicine because healing is universal, but we hope it extends to all aspects of our coexistence. She gestured to the mixed audience before her. Already, we have discovered treatments using Vorak regenerative properties that can help human patients recover from injuries once considered permanent. And human surgical techniques are saving Vorak lives that might otherwise have been lost. The symposium would last for weeks, establishing foundations for ongoing cooperation. But the most important foundation had already been laid, in a failing ship, when a doctor refused to abandon a patient, and an apex predator chose mercy over vengeance. As the formal proceedings concluded, Isla found herself standing beside Kerr in the observation lounge, both of them gazing out at the stars that had once separated their peoples. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Staying behind on the Aurora?" "Never," she replied without hesitation. "Though I still don't fully understand why the ship responded to us the way it did." Kerr considered this. "Your engineers say the Aurora's AI was programmed with complex ethical algorithms, designed to learn and evolve. Perhaps it recognized what we did not, that enemies embracing as equals creates something new, something worth preserving, something worth building upon," Ayla added. Beyond the viewport, a Vorak medical ship docked alongside a Celestia research vessel, their crews mingling without weapons or fear. Not perfect harmony. Not yet, but a beginning. And sometimes, Isla thought, watching former enemies exchange knowledge instead of fire, beginnings were enough.